What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today is a really special video. I flew home with Molly and the kids for Thanksgiving, and my mom works as a pharmaceutical sales rep in the greater Asheville area, and she wanted to take me through Asheville, North Carolina, Spruce Pine, and a lot of the areas that were absolutely devastated by Hurricane Helene. Today's video, I spend an hour with Josh Newton. He's a physician's assistant in Spruce Pine, North Carolina, where the water rose 47 feet from normal river levels. 47 feet. I can't even wrap my mind around it. I flew a drone. I talked to him for an hour. I pray that you would watch this video with an open heart and honestly pray about somehow supporting Josh's practice, as they are doing so much work in the Spruce Pine area, and just anything you can do to help the victims of Hurricane Helene in Western North Carolina and abroad. Links will be down in the description for financial donations and some other information to help victims of Hurricane Helene. I hope you watch this video and it makes as big of an impact on you as it did me. Without further ado, let's get into it.
The watermark, this was probably the first thing that we really saw when we came out after the storm, is we looked down this set of stairs and there was mud, you know, all the way up to like here.
No freaking way.
There was a watermark.
I mean, dude, you can see the color on the walls right here.
And I mean, it actually
came freaking
up because it was like 2 feet from the ceiling. So here, you can see really well when we go down here. But this was just 3 feet of mud down here. So yeah, here you can see exactly.
Oh my God.
And because of the elevation, when we get to the other side of the building, it's even a little further up and everything, because this is probably one of the lowest points. This used to be a real estate office here, and this used to be how people would come in, and like they had this really cool old drill bit from one of the mines from back in the day, since there was all the mining around here. And it was actually laying on the floor. I mean, that thing was huge. It had to be like 15 feet long, and it was just laying right here in the middle of the mud. And that's when you could really tell like just the force for us as far as what all had gotten in here to knock that thing off of the wall.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I'll show you too, we talked before about, this is our elevator. They've actually managed to get some of the mud out of it and everything, but I mean, it was, you know, like up to here full of mud and everything. That thing's shot. It's so old they can't even find parts to replace it and everything.
My God.
Now I have.
It was working prior to the hurricane?
It was working prior, exactly.
Wow.
This is how all the patients that couldn't walk long distances would come up. And like the other day I had this poor old lady. I mean, you guys walk the hallway, it's a good distance down that hallway and everything, and there's no way to take a break along the way because not really chairs or anything, and she was missing this quite a bit and everything.
My God.
So but yeah, this used to be our main entrance whenever you came in, and then through here is where the coffee shop was. So this building is like 100 years old, and it used to be the Belks building. So downstairs was the men's clothing area, and upstairs was the women's and children's and everything. And so this used to be like the showroom for the Belks, and then it's been a coffee shop for I think like 20 years or something now. And you can see it's just completely gone. And then like I was telling you, you can see the watermark. And over here, I mean,
my God, you can really see the watermark.
Yeah, it really, this is like one of the lowest points in downtown. So we got some of the highest levels of the flooding.
And it's never even gotten close to...
Not even remotely, no. I'll show you outside.
I mean, it looks like where the street is, looks like it's 25 feet above the water.
I mean, so it actually had to rise to get to here about 47 feet total. So, the thing is most of the rivers have a meter on them measuring the level. The one in South Toe, which received the highest rain total right next to us here, that one was still working, and it stopped working at about 30 feet. And after that, it didn't record anymore because it destroyed it and the bridge and everything. There was not one working here. So they, like, to actually calculate the value, we had to like walk down there and do the elevation difference. So, but we know from the pictures, it just consumed all of this with like all the way up to 47 feet. So, I mean, this is, you know, whatever that is, like.
I mean, that's a good That's a good 8.5 feet. I
Yeah.
mean, from floor level here. I mean, I put my hand up, it's 8 feet. Holy crap.
And it, like, they only had a few things that they were even able to salvage. That menu that's on the wall was one of the few things. They had 2 to 3 feet of mud in here that all had to get pushed out, and then they had to clean it out of the back rooms and stuff like that. They had to use water to get it all out. Then we had to remediate for the mold just to get it to a point where it was all safe for the rest of us to come in to occupy the upstairs area.
Yeah, you can't smell, you can smell a little bit of water and moisture when you walk in upstairs, but it's not like, it doesn't hit you like there's been a serious water issue here, but.
They worked super hard on this. I mean, thousands of volunteer hours just to get this to the point. Because I promise you, that first week, it was like wretched, the smell. I mean, it was horrible. For the first 3 or 4 weeks, it was really bad for us. And then they would have all the fans blowing, trying to dry everything out. Right now, they've got dehumidifiers working. Plus, they finally got the heat down here working because they were able to get the boiler system back operating after disassembling it. So
and you guys still don't have potable water.
So we do not. We do not have potable water. We finally got the other day clearance for our sewage a little bit. So what I mean by that is, like, the sewage is now going to a sewage plant, but they're only getting solid waste out of it. It's not treating it yet before it goes. But the water is not really potable. They told us that it doesn't have coliform in it. It doesn't have E. coli in there anymore, but we won't use it in the office here. It's still got other things in it. Part of the problem is the dam was upstream here and it was damaged. Then it had a bunch of debris in it and everything else.
Which reservoir is it?
It's Beaver Creek Dam is what
Beaver Creek Dam.
And then all the pump stations were all destroyed along the way. We were the very last place to even have them remove the boil ban because of the fact that our pipes along here are so old. They were damaged really bad. So even once they brought the water through, it's still coming out brown and everything. So they've made more progress than we expected, because when we had talked before, we were talking about how they expected a year, and for us to be this far, for us to even have some water is more than what we expected. But it's still, like, we can't clean our surgical instruments with it. We don't really use it for washing our hands. We actually bring water from my house and we have it in an igloo cooler up there and use that for washing our hands and washing all the instruments and everything.
Holy cow, dude.
Yeah. I'll take you downtown and we can sort of walk through. This coffee shop was really like the heartbeat of the community, so I think that's why everybody's pitched in so much trying to help out. And you'll see they've actually pretty nice today. Yeah, so everybody's signed here.
I saw that on the way in.
And I'll put their little notes about, the fact that they're ready for us to be back. They've got a little tiny version upstairs that they're running, just so that way they have some income for right now.
Yeah.
And we've been taking care of all of their volunteers for free. They have, people in and out that are helping do the construction and stuff, and so I want to make sure they all stay as healthy as they can.
What does insurance look like through this? Because I'm like, you guys, there's no flood insurance. You guys have never had water this high.
Yeah, so pretty much it's not covering anything at all. We had hoped that insurance would cover some of the cost of the things that got destroyed when the power went out, because the power went out almost 12 hours before the water reached all the way up here. But insurance said because it was related to the storm that they weren't going to cover any of it.
Is that not sickening?
Yeah, it's really disheartening. And then the other thing is if you had some like loss of income insurance, you're hoping at least that would give you some, but they way discount how much income you would have potentially gotten and everything. So
has it? I mean, it's obvious question, but it's hurt your practice, obviously.
Yeah, tremendously. I mean, we had 3 weeks where we couldn't operate at all. Then once we were back operating, we were still we were probably at like a third of capacity. And even now, we're really pushing just to try to keep a full schedule so that I can pay the staff and everything. But we're maybe like 2/3 of our normal schedule for us. And
Oh my gosh.
I mean, this is not cardiothoracic surgery. I'm not running
Yeah, of course.
giant profit margin. We're all, like, I make the same money as the person that works the front desk and everything. And for right now, I haven't paid myself in a couple of months and everything.
Wow.
So just trying to make sure that we keep operating and everything.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
yeah. Every time I'd have a rep come, we'd always walk down and we'd walk across the bridge and go through the park. And now the bridge is completely gone. The park's, completely gone. So we don't have any of that.
Did you say it crested at 47 foot?
Yeah. So to get all the way up there.
47 feet of water.
I mean, the videos of this entire area here was just nothing but water from the buildings all the way over to the banks over there. I mean, it looked like a lake. It's nothing that anybody's ever seen here. When we first pulled up, it took us 3 days to cut out because we had a tornado come right by our house. It missed us by like 100 feet and dropped hundreds and hundreds of trees, but we were able to walk out by the second day. And so my office manager and I, we drove down here to check out, and like this pocket park right here was one of the first things that was visible, and you could just see the 3 feet of mud and everything there. And they still got their watermark kind of on there. I was going to tell you, so most of our business and our building is one of the luckier ones because of the fact that we have our breaker boxes on the upstairs, so that's why we're able to still be open. But like these, they all have their breaker boxes downstairs.
Fried.
They still don't have power and everything. They have to go through a full inspection before they're even going to be able to flip it. So they're all completely empty. And like that Spruce Pine florist that's right there, that lady just bought that business. She's a young woman. She just bought it months before all of this happened. And then just a couple of weeks ago, she's operating up on Upper Street. They sort of set up like a little place for all the businesses to try to operate in the meantime. And she got like severe burns on her hands from hot wax and everything. So it's like,
oh my
you've already got the fact that you're trying to struggle. She's a lot like us. Like we're only our first year into this, so we've already got mountains of debt, and most of the assistance for us is just loans. That's all. Well, pretty much all the assistance for us.
Yeah, that's one thing.
loans.
I had made a video that I was like, personally, I was a business owner for over a decade. I'm like, here I am. I've paid federal tax. This is obviously a multi-state federal catastrophe. It's like, as a business owner, where's the government? I mean, I'm a free enterprise capitalist, but I'm like, if you're going to force me to pay taxes, the taxes should come back to help me, and especially in a time of catastrophe like this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's total horse crap.
Yeah, we've had a really rough time with that because even we had hoped, okay, maybe we'll get some grants. Almost all the grant money
is in Asheville.
Yeah, it's not
unbelievable.
like they're like, oh, here's $25,000 for 25 businesses. Well, we're not going to be one of those 25 businesses, and so that's why we're struggling just to figure out how do we get some of these big expenditures. I mean, they're talking about needing, $2 million just to redo this downstairs and get everything back to where it needs to be. And how do you do that? Plus a lot of the employees that had to leave because this was their job. Those jobs aren't there anymore. Yeah. Are we even going to be able to get them to come back? So what they did in the first couple of days is we ripped out all of this, and there's a parking lot down there that was just filled up with garbage up above my head.
Were they able to dispose of it? Is it still there?
So there's still some of it there and everything. They have disposed of some, but not all of it. So 5 of the buildings through downtown here are condemned, and they won't be able to reopen. With that, 5 of the businesses are also not going to reopen. And it's not a big main street, so we have maybe 10 businesses or whatever.
Yeah.
Like one of the businesses, they lost their house and they lost their business. They moved to California like within a week or 2 of the storm.
Oh my gosh.
This one right here, they haven't done anything. You may even still be able to see inside. Yeah, you sure can. That's the mud.
Holy, oh my gosh.
And I mean, so you can see how that's...
Guys, that mud is, that's literally up to my knees.
Yeah.
It might be hard for you guys to see. Oh my gosh.
Here, you can look in through there because...
oh my God. Guys, that's 2 foot of mud. Oh my God.
In this business, they pretty much decided that's it. They're not doing anything. So they're one of the ones that hasn't even been cleaned out. They put so much money into this brewery here and redoing this building and everything.
Oh my God, dude.
And you can see too, there's the water line on it. So it's
Oh
like
my
ours.
God, that's the water line right here, guys. Dude, what in the... This is like, I don't know, you're probably like me. You're probably like, you see natural catastrophes in other places, and I don't know, you're just like in the mountains, you're like, the water runs, and I don't know, I thought we were immune to it.
I used to live in Houston, and then before here, we lived in Kansas. And I remember, like, specifically when we moved here, I read this article about all the natural disasters that you'd have all across the U.S. And there's like a little gap right in our area, and it's like, you're really not going to get... Worst thing we'd have here is a blizzard, and everybody's pretty much prepared for that.
Yeah,
it doesn't
four-wheel drive
destroy
trucks and whatever else.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, I know Houston, like, I survived hurricanes there plenty before. I helped out with Katrina when we were in Kansas. I mean, we were right next to the Joplin tornado that came through. We lived through tornadoes there and everything. It's just nothing to this. I mean, my wife, you know, she lived for a while there in Kansas, and one of the things she said is, you know, when you have a tornado come through, it destroys everything, and within weeks, you've cleaned up all of that stuff and you're moving on. I mean, for us, 2 months out, and we haven't gotten anything cleaned up because it's like in every crevice, down every holler, everywhere.
Well, that, and it's so, yeah, like you said, it's widespread.
Yeah.
You can't go, like, okay, this looks like Canton, looks like Swannanoa.
Yeah.
Look like you can't run, and it's like, if there was one thing where people are like, what do you need? I'm like, honestly, an army of 2,000 dump trucks and 2,000 heavy machines. I mean, excavators, bulldozers.
And you know, in the first
skid
couple
steers.
of weeks, we had a lot of people in here like that. We had groups that were rebuilding the roads. We've had all this work. These railroad tracks have all been redone over the last couple of weeks. But now, 2 months in, everybody's gone. You know, like,
oh my
we had to have
God.
work done on our culvert. And, you know, it was a group from Charlotte that came up over the weekend just to get that done. And ours is a small project compared to all these major ones. I mean, you see all these trees here. It's going to take so much work to cut that up. And every patient I talk to talks about how they've gotten the little bit taken care of around the home or whatever, you know, but like the devastation across all the property, all the areas, it's horrendous. And still plenty of them, you know, they lost their homes. They're living in a camper or whatever else. They're trying to figure out, they don't have well-constructed plans for how they're going to rebuild.
And then, like you said, so many of them have houses, they're on the hook for mortgages. Those mortgages aren't covered by flood insurance because there's never been flooding like this, and now they're on the hook with debt, and they don't have jobs. It's like,
even the ones that we know that have flood insurance, it was not enough to cover the homes. You know, there's just no way to rebuild. This was a consignment store, and when we drove down here the first week, every single item in that consignment store was up against this window and everything up against the windows here. You can kind of peek in there and see. They've done good work here cleaning it out and all, but they're hundreds of people with their little stuff that was consigned in their little shops, and those are all gone. This is where the trash was all brought, and I'll show you the theater. There's one of the condemned buildings. So this entire parking lot was full of trash from all the buildings pulled out. And
my God.
There's still back there in the corner. There's still some of it back over here, but it's piled up as high as that water tank is right there. Just full of everything. Everybody just took every bit out, and that was the first couple of weeks. And this
we stopped at a donation center, and he said like he thought building materials were probably, you know, like if he said there were 3 things that we need, he was like building materials, heavy machinery, and money.
I think that is spot on. That's exactly right. So my wife, she normally works in our front office, and she's been helping out with the nonprofits and everything.
Yeah.
And that's what, what she's noticed is that the building stuff, that's a real lack right now and everything. Let this truck pass for you.
That's fine.
But that's what we see every day. There's hundreds of those dump trucks running through here because they're all trying to do what they can, but they're primarily working with the mines and everything, so they're not taking care of the individuals. But yes, absolutely. And the money is one of the hardest things, because the fact that nobody wants to just give money if they don't know where it's going and what's going to happen with it. But it's probably the single biggest thing we need at this point. There's just not the capital in this area to sustain the rebuilding effort that we need.
Yeah.
And there's a big worry, you know, at this point, the coffee shop that I showed you is probably the one business that's really pushing forward rebuilding. I don't know how many of the other ones will be able to finance rebuilding. So that money is a huge issue for us about how do we get these businesses back. I mean, it was a super quaint town before, and you know,
yeah, like all the towns.
Yeah,
I mean, I think about because that's another one of my thoughts is the business that I owned was a hospitality tourism business.
Sure.
You know, and I think there's 30-some thousand jobs in Western North Carolina that are tourism centric, and yeah, like you said, I mean, dude, it's the day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
This would be popping downtown.
Oh, it would be. Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
everybody
Christmas shopping.
In and out of that store right there, Treasures in the Pine, they'd all be buying. I remember last year, my office manager, she's like, I got to run down here and get Christmas gifts and everything. They're all gone. And then, you know, it hit right peak season for leaves and everything. And it also, you know, a lot of the places that could have potentially had tourists, instead they were filled up with volunteers and everybody else, because they're going to do everything they can to help support the community. Of course. So I guess they closed this back up. This was an old theater. You could see a really neat view in here. He's got a padlock. You can see all the way to the back, and they hadn't pulled the mud out, but this building is completely it's condemned now. They're going to have to tear it down and everything. And there's a couple of our other restaurants they're trying to rebuild. I don't know if they'll be able to or not. And these cars were here, the train containers.
Yeah.
They show you just kind of what was left over. You want to walk across? We'll walk along the river for a second.
God.
I know it's hard to talk about a lot of the stuff because you just feel like you relive it constantly.
I know. I that was one thing. Even I was like, I feel bad for you and everyone else going through it, because I'm like, I mean, you've had to probably tell the story a ton, and like, you know, obviously there's a level of PTSD associated with it.
So the way I start every visit with every patient is I ask them, you know, how they fared in the storm, and it does feel like each time like we're just constantly reliving it. I mean, it feels therapeutic to give them the opportunity to talk about their trauma. It also sucks because I feel like I carry all that all the time.
Man, I bet.
I mean, you know, people have been through a lot worse than I have. Like, I had one lady, she's a 70-year-old woman. She told me a story of crawling out of her house on her hands and knees. Just... Sorry.
No, dude, you're good. It's powerful.
But yeah, crawling through the woods trying to survive. I mean, like, that's horrible. Sorry.
Nah, dude. Yeah. I mean, I've held it together kind of all day, and I'm like, at some point, I'm gonna not be able to hold it in.
That was a lot in the beginning. I would start just therapeutic cry for like 30 minutes in the morning, just because you think through all the stuff every single day, and then at the end of the day, you'd kind of process through all the stuff that you heard from patients. And I think the hardest thing is then trying to figure out, how do I help all these people?
Yeah.
You know, like, what do? We've managed to get donations to the people that have lost their houses. We've helped some get campers. You know, we've tried to do everything we can to help people as much as we can. I mean, you know, sometimes it's just saying a prayer with somebody or sitting there listening to their story or whatever else, but I wish I could do so much more to help them all out.
I think we all do.
So this is all of our debris through here. And it's interesting because you look at that side at how much God only knows when all of this will get cleared out of here. And this is the one thing that they have invested in because it's the lifeblood of the community is the railroad
mines.
tracks. And yeah, exactly, for the mines. And so within days, this track through here was being rebuilt. I mean, there was just lines of dump trucks around the corner because they have plenty of money to throw into it, and without that quartz, you don't get computer systems across the U.S. and everything.
Yeah.
And that's exactly when we drove up here the first day. So I was the medical director of a local clinic through COVID, and I remember like through COVID, the whole thing was, how do I keep these 150 people employed? How do I make sure that they all stay alive in the community and everybody stays employed? The first thing I thought of here is I was like, how do I keep my 5 employees making their salaries? I can't lose them. They're extremely valuable. And how do I make sure that we can continue to support them, especially being closed for almost a month and everything, you know?
Yeah. I mean, dude, look, these are, 1,000-pound iron railroad. I mean, this is unbelievable.
When you drive up along the river, up through the mountains here, you'll see the railroad tracks. They look like spaghetti noodles because it has just tossed them across the river, completely eroded away the tracks and everything. It's unreal, the forest. At our house, we have a little tiny creek. The creek's probably not any bigger, deeper than that, maybe no wider than that. I watched it move rocks that weigh like 500 pounds that my daughter and I have tried to move and couldn't possibly move or whatever, and it just shoved them right up out of the way and everything. Just tiny creek.
There's so much debris.
So this over here is where they're bringing in the debris across that park, because that park is covered in like 3 or 4 feet of mud. It's just completely destroyed, all the fields and everything. So now what they're doing is all the debris that they're bringing in from other areas, they're processing it here. They're grinding up the wood, they're separating out the metal, they're getting all the construction supplies. If you want to, I'll walk you up to show where Lisa and I would walk up to the bridge there. Actually, so the day of the storm, that evening we went with my daughter. So it had been raining all day Wednesday, all day Thursday, and you know that's our window right there, right? And we're looking out across this, so we see the gloominess. We watched the waters rise up that whole day, and so at the end of Thursday we just said, like, let's just get out. We'll go for a ride. So we took my wife, my daughter, and we drove around, and we walked across the bridge here. We drove down the river just to look at everything, and I never realized, like, we were the last people probably to walk across that bridge because it was destroyed hours later when the waters rose up. And
were they, I remember getting alerts and saying, expect flooding. Were they calling, because what 30 inches of rain, 33 inches of rain?
Yeah, 33 inches is what we got right over here. They were telling us it was going to be bad. So, like, right where we live, there's a trailer park that's right along the creek there. They came and they told everyone they needed to be out of there. Most people didn't listen and everything. There were alarms going off on my phone all night, watch for flash floods. They told us it would be severe, but it's like you said earlier, severe around here for a flash flood, like maybe worst case scenario, it comes up to these tracks or whatever. Nothing like this. I mean, when we drove that night, those windows right there were being taped by the owners of the building. And I thought, God, that's brilliant of them. But I bet you there's no way it'll reach those windows. Like, that would be a flood like they've never seen here and everything. And now to think, not only did it reach them, it completely destroyed them and almost got all the way to the second floor and everything. So yeah, there used to be like an art studio and a restaurant and a little craft store and everything there. And those are all completely gone. They're trying to see what they can do to rebuild those. So those are a couple of the ones that have tried to rebuild. That Mexican restaurant there, from what I understand, I don't know that they're going to be able to because there's a crack in the foundation, and they may be that building.
Is the crack from the hurricane?
So there were fires years ago. That white building right there is one of the ones that burned down in the fire. There was an arsonist, and so they're not sure if the crack's from the flood or from the arson.
Gotcha.
But that's sort of, now that building is completely condemned because now it's been through a flood and through an arson.
Jeez.
There's no bringing it back and everything. This one right here, Herman's Antiques, that's one of the ones I feel the worst for because the people that have their shop in there right now, they were completely trapped. They couldn't get out for the first week or whatever, so they weren't like everybody else where they could get in here and clean out and everything. They also couldn't let volunteers in because they weren't around. The guy that owns the building, he lives right on the river. His house had 4 trees on it. He lives by himself. He lost his wife to cancer a couple of years ago and everything, and so, you know, he couldn't really get up here because he was trying to deal with his house and everything. And he's one of those guys, when you have a mission trip, he's the first guy in line. He's the first one to help out anybody in the community. He volunteers for everything. He's always just one of those people to help. And I mean, you can see his building, and hardly anything's been done to it because by the time they could get in there and do something, all the volunteers were gone. So we've been trying to get some local volunteers to help out. And of course, everybody that knows him wants to help out because they know he's a good guy.
Hey, seems like a stud.
Yeah. But it's just a sad story because it's like if they had gotten that clean in the first week, they would be more like our building where they might be able to be rebuilding. But instead, the mold and mildew issues he probably has are going to be pretty severe.
Jeez.
So now we're starting to go up on the rise. So these are the ones where it was primarily, as we get to like the church and the newspaper office, those just had the floors that had the water on them. And they've pretty well been fixed because they've ripped up the floors and everything. So you can see our park.
Oh my God, dude.
I know the guy that...
So those are swings. Yeah. Was that swing set always there?
Yeah, that swing set's always been there.
And it was under dirt and mud?
Yeah, yep.
Holy...
You can see that wall there. That wall was covered up with all the silt and everything. There's actually a splash pad that they just put in the last couple of years there. This was a baseball field right here, and if you see those little signs that are along the front, that's a walking trail, and it would have a book that they would lay out page by page, and you could walk along and kids could read it or whatever. And all that's completely gone. It's completely destroyed. The guy who runs these parks, he worked on all this 20 years, and you know, he's done so much. They just put in new bathroom facilities. They've been building all these hiking trails. He told me the other day he just had a breakdown because it was like everything he's
ever worked for his whole life
is gone, like completely destroyed.
God.
And to now go back and be like, all right, I'm gonna rebuild it. You know, like how do you do that after it took you 20 years to make all this? And you know, FEMA's going to try to give them some money for it, hopefully, but it will never cover the cost of what it took to do all that. And, you know, the softball teams, they're not going to be able to play this year because that's their field that they play on. You know, a lot of these sports teams, they're not going to have the places. Most of our community would walk around this trail every day, and now we don't have a place to walk anymore. Rock all the way over to that staircase over there.
Yeah.
So, and it's been here forever. They were talking about fixing it up and everything because it was so old, and now it's just destroyed, just laid across the river. And there used to be like little awnings down there where you'd have picnics and stuff all along the park. And all those are completely and utterly gone. And you can see pretty well the river. This is what most people have described, that it was so strong that it dropped it by about 4 feet as far as how much it eroded, and then it spread it out another 10 to 20 feet. So it's just really made it a whole bunch wider. And all of this through here is more of brand new gravel. These tracks were just hanging in the air before.
Oh my God. I mean, dude, I can't even wrap my mind around water coming up that high. You know, I was telling Mom, I'm like, it kind of makes sense when you get into some narrow parts of the river, you know, and it takes and funnels that water down. Obviously, there's nowhere for the water to go but up.
Yeah.
But to think 47 feet tall, I mean, dude, that's bigger than most mature trees.
Yeah. No, I mean, I lived up here during the floods in like 95. We lived up in Boone and everything, and that was one of the catastrophic ones through here. It's nothing like this. I mean, even as quick as those rivers rose, nowhere near to this level. We lived right above the new river my whole life. I watched it come up and, you know, swallow the banks, but never like 40 feet up like this one did and everything. It's unreal, the power, and it's all those creeks and everything that funnel down. And the problem we have in the communities is those creeks that funneled into this destroyed everything in their paths. I mean, they ripped up roads and houses. And
every little valley has a road that parallels a creek, and there's there's one bridge to enter the valley, and that bridge gets washed out, and people get stranded. And
one of our communities here, Cane Creek, they're still rebuilding the roads there. I mean, it goes way back all the way up into the holler. It's pretty long. There's a lot of people that live back up there, and they've been working for 2 months straight, and they still don't have it rebuilt and fixed. And the worry from the DOT people is they fix it all, but things have to settle and all the rest of that, and then we get more rain or whatever. How much of this is going to collapse over time? We had a geologist that told us we're going to have the worst wildfires and the worst mudslides for the next 2 years that we've ever had around this region, just because of how much has been eroded away and all the debris. I mean,
all the dry, you know, all these trees are going to dry out, be super flammable.
Yeah, you got
wow, I didn't even think about that.
And it's hard to tell your neighbor, don't light that fire, you know, because they're trying to
stay warm. And they're trying to stay warm.
I mean, that's fair. Everybody's, you know, chopping up firewood, but
I mean, in the mountains, obviously a lot of people do have heat pumps, but dude, a lot of these old-timey houses, I mean, dude, my wife and I's first house, we heated the house with a furnace.
The majority of my patients, that's what they said, is they're chopping all this up, trying to season it for heat and everything, for sure. And especially given the concerns about power loss, because, you know, like me personally, we were without power for 3 weeks and everything. And I wasn't even the worst here. We had plenty that were without power for, you know, a month and everything. So they're relying on wood heat, and everybody's worried as soon as we get more rains and winds, those trees, the trees that are half, you know, they're sort of leaning, they're going to fall, and they're going to take a power line out. And what do you do then? You've got to heat with wood at that point.
Jeez, I cannot get over. Oh my God.
It's just tragic. I wish you could see from here too. There's a car over there and a truck.
I'll fly a drone.
Sitting.
I think I see the white car. Is that a white car right there below that thing?
Mm-hmm. I think there's like 2 or 3 that are right in here, and down that way, down across from Ingalls, there's a tractor trailer that's
in the creek
and everything. I mean, it just pushed all of them.
I flew a drone in Swannanoa earlier below these big trees, and was looking up under a bridge, dude, and there was an 18-wheeler wedged underneath the bridge. I'm like, how in the hell does that even happen?
We had 2 or 3 of our bridges here where there were like the shipping containers off of an 18-wheeler jammed up against them.
Probably folded like a taco.
Oh yeah, like the houses, you know, they come along and they shatter when they hit.
Yeah,
and a lot of them would take the bridges out and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, those containers would just shove up against it. I don't know if you heard the story. There's a story about the Ingalls that's down here. So that's our main grocery store in town, right? And so it sits not far from the river, but they've always tried to make sure that it's protected from the water. And I mean, never have they had anything to this level. So the day that the waters were rising, as the storm was sort of continuing to leave, but then the waters were coming up, everybody was in there trying to squeegee it out. And it kept coming and kept coming. And finally, it was just the manager the produce manager, and the pharmacist. And they were the last 3 trying to keep everything going because the other employees had been sent home for their safety and everything. So the wall breaks on the side of the Ingalls, and the water comes rushing in, and they have to run out the opposite side of the building and climb up onto the roof and try to ride out the rest of the storm up there, because it was just flooding right in there and everything. I mean, I can't even imagine the fear that they probably had that day. And now that Ingalls it's completely destroyed. So that's our main grocery store here in the area, and we don't have that. And it took us about, oh gosh, maybe 6 weeks before we had any restaurants that were able to open, because everybody had to figure out alternative solutions since we didn't have sewage and water.
Well, and no electricity or no Wi-Fi to collect payments and credit cards.
Yeah.
And dude, it's 2024. I mean, you probably don't walk around with cash in your pocket like that. Or
a lot of the initial donations that we had, I told people, give us cash, because that's what I would hand to people giving out so that they could use that to buy food and everything else. Because it was a cash system for a while.
Jesus.
At least our mural or our whatever you call that, mosaic.
Yeah. I mean, dude, I have like a stomach ache. I'm going to say this, and I mean, it's like I don't want to say this, but like, how do you rebuild?
I don't know.
I'm like, where do you start?
That's the question I keep asking myself. You know, I know there's plenty of people that have just up and left because it's just too hard. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. We keep telling ourselves the river rose up, we will rise up.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's hard. It's a difficult climb. And I know there's a lot of times I wake up just wondering, how do we possibly do this? Can we do this? Are we going to be able to do it?
Man.
Hopefully maybe in 5 years we look back at it and the town's stronger and we all made it through, but
yeah,
it's going to be a hell of a road in the meantime.
It's going to be a hell of a road.
The things that I've learned talking, I mean, you know, sort of how we are in the mountains and everything is everybody's very content with, you know, we try to live like this placid small town kind of life or whatever.
It don't take much for us to be happy.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say. I think that's one of the beautiful things that I've gotten to see in this is how much people who have lost everything are just completely content where they are. And I think that's what I keep telling myself when we think about trying to rebuild is like, maybe sometimes we just have to find joy in the fact that we don't have everything we used to have, and we'll never get everything back like we used to, but at least we're still here, we're still alive, you know, we can still make it through.
Yeah.
One of the monuments or things that did make it through, right where that flag is next to the depot, so the water was all the way up to the roof of that depot, but at the base of it there was a cannon and a stack of cannonballs, and that's why the flag is there, because it was a memorial to the Over the Mountain Men. And the Over Mountain Men was this group that came from here and went down to Kings Mountain, and they fought against the British. So in the Revolutionary War, you know, these people were trying to fight for their freedom and everything. Yeah. So they brought together a militia, came down there, defeated the British. So that memorial still made it through the flood.
Wow.
It's got the little mound of cannonballs. The cannon didn't make it. It got floated away.
Wow.
But at least the rest of it made it. So at least that's a nice reminder of the local strength.
I know hindsight's always 20/20, but when we're in the thick of it, God, I know it can be confusing and tough. God, I say that as a sinner and as a broken man. Lord, I just pray for Josh. I pray for his business. I pray for all these businesses. I pray for all these people that have been affected, God, just the things that I've seen today. And Lord, just the roller coaster of emotions from just defeat to hope to joy to confusion and desperation and everything in between. Lord, I just pray for this region. I pray that there's just an awakening across this country from fellow Americans. God, different
political views, different races, different cultures, different backgrounds, God, that we could just unite and rebuild, and God, that our fellow citizens wouldn't forget us. I just pray that we would come together, God, and rebuild these amazing communities filled with amazing people. Lord, I just thank you for Josh and his heart. I think about all of his patience that he serves, God, that I know he just wakes up every day wanting to make an impact, Lord, like I pray most of us do. And God, just through this time, that we would just seek you, and that we would just seek to glorify you, and that you would give us strength to persevere and continue through it all, Lord. But God, we just praise you even through the trials and tribulations of this life. We just love you. Amen.
Amen. Give me a hug, man.
Yeah, bro.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate you.
All right, well, if you made it this far, I really appreciate you guys watching the video. Man, I cried a bunch driving to Spruce Pine, all the damage that I saw, and then after I left, I cried with Josh. I have a hard time, like I said, wrapping my mind around how that is even possible. But like I said at the beginning, guys, pray about supporting, volunteering, doing something for these beautiful people that live in these mountain communities. And yeah, until next time, we'll see you guys.